evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Yachats Commons. This is our community center here in Yachats, and all kinds of different events take place. Tonight happens to be the one-year anniversary of the beginning of the Yachats Academy of Arts and Sciences last year. On the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which was the 27th also, we did the showing of the film Ingredients, and close to 200 people showed up for that. The producer of the film was here, and we had a great question and answer period afterwards. We've had multiple programs throughout the year, different than some of the other things that take place here, but well received by the community, and we're working on next year. I've known Matt Love for quite a while now. Matt was with the Oregon Humanities Commission in their Chautauqua series, and we brought him down here to do a program on the only rock concert that the state of Oregon presented. It was political, to say the least, in that they wanted to rid Portland of any demonstrators for the Vietnam War. Some Washington people were coming in and wanted to clear the streets, so the state sponsored this free rock concert. Tens of thousands of people showed up for it. Matt came and gave us the whole story, and it was incredible. Matt is a regular contributor to Coast Today. If you read through almost every week, or every other week, there's a great article in there. For those of us that wander the beaches, it's like reading something out of your own head. You've had the experience before. So I'm very glad that he's now able to give some of his skills, teaching skills to our young people. Occasionally I turn to Channel 4, which is Charter Communications Public Service Channel, and there'll be Matt, and there'll be a whole group of students there, and they're either reading their poetry, reading their prose, singing their own compositions. It's an amazing way to teach some good skills to these young people so they can express what they're thinking and their concerns and what their hopes are. It's very inspiring, and I know you can see it in the faces of these young people. You know, they are enjoying it. They are enjoying getting these thoughts out of their head, because it is, you remember those days, it is confusing. So please give a warm welcome to Matt Love.
Yes, I am a star on cable access in Lincoln County. That's what I always aspire to. I got a couple really, thank you, Don, for the wonderful introductions. I'm astonished at the turnout here. I really am. I mean, I was figuring 10, 15 people, because I don't know Yachats very well, but thank you for coming out on this November night. It's nice to see one of my students right here, Asher Doyle, is in the audience tonight. This kid is the hardest hardcore Oregon student I think I've ever taught in my entire career. He collects chanterelle mushrooms, brings them to my classroom, cooks them up in the parking lot, and then I have to be the only teacher in America where students are foraging for mushrooms and then cooking them for me for lunch. It's been great to Newport really welcomed me after I left the refuge in 2008. The book is set primarily in 1997, and the story of the book is I was 33 years old. I was teaching at Hillsborough High School. I owned a loft in the Pearl District, and I was pretty much dead to the world. I'd always wanted to be a writer. I was teaching there. I wasn't teaching with purpose or any kind of overarching mission. My dream had always been one to be an Oregonian of merit and a writer, and nothing was happening to me in Portland. And one day, I was living with she later became my wife, Cindy, and I answered an ad for a middle school teaching position at a small private K-8 school called Nesquin Valley School. Wonderful school, still in operation. And I said, you know what, let's just go check it out. I ended up applying for that job and getting the job and taking a big pay cut and deciding that at 33, I was going to either go for it as a writer or I was going to pack it in and quit teaching for all time. So the idea was to move to the coast. I had never lived in a rural area. I didn't know anything about home improvement or anything like that. And I go down there and I began teaching. And one day, the summer after my first year there, I got a call from a guy named Eric Nelson, and he was he worked for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service based here in Newport, and I had taught his daughter, and I vaguely knew Eric. And he says, hey, I got a proposition for you. How would you like to become the caretaker of the Nestucca Bay National Wildlife Refuge? And I go, well, where's that? And what's a caretaker? So he sort of explained on the phone that the duty would be, you trade your labor, which at that point was 35 hours a month, and you live for free, and you become you're basically running the whole grounds, which was 600 acres between Pacific City and Nesquin on the west side of 101. So the riff I'm going to read from the book here is when he has called me on the phone, and my then wife, Cindy, is in Portland, and I'm going to go see the refuge for the first time, okay? So as I drive to the refuge, I consider the duty of caretaking as a writing topic, not the labor I vaguely expect it might require. The topic presents literary potential, but it's been done before in the West and done well, classic in fact. Edward Abbey in Desert Solitaire, Rick Bass in Winter, and Pete Fromm in Indian Creek Chronicles. 10 minutes later, I turn left on Christensen Road and spot the Nestucca Bay National Wildlife Refuge sign. I drive up a gravel road and stop the car in front of a hulking and forlorn yellow barn. I don't see a house where Eric said one should exist, but I do see 40 yards away a small mountain of blackberries and overgrown shrubs enveloping what I deduce from evidence of a chimney poking through foliage might be a house. Ray, he's my dog, or was my dog, and I exit the Honda and move toward the chimney on a dead reckoning course. Upon closer inspection, I detect a faded, cedar-shaped roof. This cannot be the place. Eric said vacant, not abandoned. I walked up the road with Ray and probed for better views of the structure. Indeed, it's a tan house, siding streaked by mold, with a garage attached to the bizarre, inexplicable angle. This is it? Eric thinks anyone will move into this dump? Battling through waist-high grass and blackberry thickets, I circle the house, count off my footsteps, and estimate its interior at 1,200 square feet. At every window and sliding glass door, I try to peer inside, but all the blinds and curtains are drawn. I sit on the rotting deck and absorb the visual details. A glimpse of the Little Nestucca River leaks through the brush. I faintly hear the ocean and faintly smell salty air. The Coast Range scarred slopes loom east. A cemetery on a far hill comes into view. Huge RVs roll down Highway 101. Spruces tower behind the house. Milk cows graze in the pastures below. Blackberry thickets full of fruit, blackberry fields forever, crawling over everything, snapping in the breeze like Medusa's snakes. I watch two red-tailed hawks glide overhead. Ray digs furiously for something. The nearest neighbor lives a half-mile away. I sit on the deck looking in every direction. 10, 15, then 20 minutes elapse, and I don't say a word. Ray joins me and I brush the dirt from his snout. Something manifest is happening. I feel it rising within me. I envision I'll never piss inside again, the dream of every real man. Constant home improvement, manual labor outdoors, turn up rock and roll to 11, caretaker and lord protector of the Nestucca Bay National Wildlife Refuge, live for free, guardian and master of nearly 600 American taxpayer-owned acres on the glorious North Oregon coast. Meet the new boss, not the same as the old boss. Roll over, John Dewey, and give American literature the news. Give me literary shelter indeed. I vault off the deck and Ray follows me. We walk toward the car intended to leave, but I notice the gravel road continues past the house, barrels through the blackberries and around a bend, and then disappears from view. Eric hadn't mentioned anything about this or what comprised the rest of the refuge. I'm curious to know where the road leads, and since time is on my side at the Oregon coast and Cindy isn't coming back for a few days, Ray and I set up on foot up the road. Approximately a quarter mile later, up a moderate grade, the road flattens out, emerging from foliage and shadows into a vast clearing with sweeping hills lifted from the sound of music. Straight ahead in the distance, I see the tops of trees. We venture a little farther down the road, and a few yards later, I stop transfixed and witness something wholly unexpected. Nestucca Bay at low tide, and farther out still, the Pacific Ocean. The sea is this close. Ray starts bounding up the bigger hill to my left, and I follow him. We hike south through waist-high grass, gaining in altitude until I spy a yellow pole at the apex of the hill that piques my curiosity. I decide to investigate, and we ascend the hill and stand next to a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Survey marker. I see Nestucca Bay, Haystack Rock, Cape Kiwanda, Cape Lookout, Mount Hebo, Cascade Head, Little Nestucca River, Coast Range, Nestucca Spit to the near west and to the endless west, and ocean all to myself. No one is around, and no one will ever be around. I see one house and hear nothing of human-generated sounds. Sitting on the ground, I pluck a long blade of grass and recall the spirit of Walt Whitman. It occurs to me sitting in the tall grass with Ray that although I'd read Leaves of Grass many times, I never understood it till now. It's time to go. I push myself up the ground, pet Ray's head, and begin jogging down the hill. A few seconds later, I launch into a full, reckless sprint over uneven and molehill-studded ground with Ray in loping pursuit. This could be our run every morning. Ray and I return from the walk and probe the grounds around the house again before leaving. A few minutes later, we sit on the deck for 10 minutes, and suddenly a vision floods me. On the refuge, I can become someone else besides a teacher, the only adult identity I've ever known. The possibilities contained within this place are endless, exhilarating, and have nothing to do with teaching. I intuit with the most astonishing flash of clarity in my life that caretaking this refuge is the big, lucky break I've sought my whole life. I still get excited about reading that passage, even though this is like the 30th event for this book, because I remember that moment where I ascended that hill and looked around and said, this is mine. And I had to convince my wife to move into the house, which was a former dairy house that had carpet stapled up the side of the jacuzzi in the bathtub and nice turds inside the microwave oven. How they got there, I'll never know. But it was a disaster. So we moved in there, and that first year I was teaching at Esquimalt Valley School and coming home and preparing the grounds, preparing the house, and battling the blackberries, the Himalayans, to death. And in my capacity up there, I like to think that I cut more Himalayan blackberries by hand than any living Oregonian I've ever used herbicides up there. So that was, I knew that, let me back up a little bit. My parents were both teachers. They were master teachers. My sister was a teacher. All my relatives were teachers. And I had thought that it was beneath me, that I had not eclipsed my parents. And I thought I was a good teacher back there in the mid-90s, but I felt that I wanted something more. And so the move to the coast was a searching, a probing for that. And I knew that when we signed on to become caretakers, that it was the big break, and that it amounted to basically a grant, a federal grant, to bust my ass up there, but also to live for free, to try to become a writer. Because that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to do it. I kept my journals, which Asher has seen in my class, but that was just, stream of consciousness kind of stuff. And what does it take to become a writer? You need time and space. And the refuge afforded me that, but not that first year. So I would teach all day, come home, change my clothes, and go out and hack blackberries till the sun went down. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then the year progressed, and the book chronicles my exploits with this group of 7th and 8th graders up there. And this book is primarily about my teaching career and my philosophy. It was imparted to me by my father, who's called the old man in the book, about what he believed in teaching and what I took away from the book, from his teaching career. And I figured when I quit in 1999, that last day, that I was done for good. I was never going back in the classroom. I had a 10-year run. I was done. I'd given everything I had, because I always do. The kids get the best of me. And frequently I would come home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go to sleep in all my clothes until 6 o'clock in the evening. They got the best of me, but I couldn't write and teach at the same time. I didn't know how. So I quit that job, and I want to go flash forward here to right after that job ended. And so I was done with teaching. I'm never going back. I considered burning all my curriculum, too, that I had accumulated. Like putting it in a big pile on the blackberries and just setting it, really cutting, the times. But I didn't do it, thank goodness. Okay, so this is fast forwarding at the end of the year, and we had done some great things at the school, and Esquimalt Valley School is a real special place on the Oregon coast, what they do there, a non-sectarian private school. They're more interested in having kids take a bike ride than take a state test. And so that's kind of why I was attracted to the place, because they just let me do whatever I wanted. Okay, so this is